All right, good morning, everyone. Are you going to play a soccer game? Nice. You already have? Oh, nice. Did you win? 2-1, nice. All right, anyone want to change some rules? Any rules that we want to change? Yep, hit us. Oh, so no gravity. Nice, I like it. Yep. So you don't want to wear a uniform at school. What do you want to wear instead? Clothes, just whatever you want. Yep. What do you want to change? Same rule. Any other rules we want to change? Yep. If you're over the age of 13, you must have a phone. As in, you want that to be the new rule? Interesting. Wow. I'm telling you right now, all the scientific research says you don't want to do that. But anyway, that's okay. Yes. Everyone under the age of 16 should have a minimum wage of $50 per hour. So you're saying just a child that is born should be paid $50 every hour they're awake. But, so you're saying we should reinstitute child slavery and labor for $50 an hour. I mean, it's a relatively good wage, but... Yeah, but she's saying that they should all... Yeah, exactly. It's not very nice. Okay, yep, next. Every job you apply for, you get. So you think just anyone and everyone can be a space astronaut? So you can be a tennis player and just lose 6 love, 6 love, 6 love? Because just because you get the job doesn't mean you're good at it. Then why aren't you playing on the tour right now? All I'm hearing is excuses. No, good man. Yep. What am I saying? Say it. Say it. Say it. Say it. That's the worst. All right, anyway. The reason I asked this question about rules is because I'm very competitive, and so I always like to look for ways to bend the rules or loopholes in the rules. And none of this was more evident than when I was playing A-grade mixed netball back in Ballarat. Yeah, it was interesting having to wear a skirt, but you got to do what you got to do. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't actually have to wear a skirt because you went like this. You made a grossed out face. Anyway, so I was playing mixed netball A-grade. We were in the semi-final, and there was about 2 minutes left. We were 2 goals up. And the other team had the ball. They were throwing it out from the center. And center throws it to wing attack. Wing attack gets it, throws it back to center. And as this is happening, I can see that the goal attack is wrapping around the back of the goal shooter. And, like trying to use the goal shooter as kind of like a screen to make me lose contact with them. So I take a little bit of a gamble and I go over the top of the goal shooter rather than behind. And as the ball is passed, I get a hand in there and just I'm able to just swat the ball away, knock it out of bounds. Now, I run over to go and get the ball because I'm a nice guy, which again, you look at it and you go, I don't know why they would let me do that, because what a great way to just run down the clock, let the clock run down a little bit. But anyway, I run over to get the ball, and really it's because I've learned a rule in netball that I was pretty sure that the guy who was about to throw the ball in didn't know about. Now, I'd found this out earlier in the season because I'd made the same mistake, and I'd clocked it as I think I can use this one day. And this was the day I was going to use it. I'd found out that if you were playing netball, and again, I don't want to get into the rules, and maybe the rules have changed. This was 12 years ago. The rule was, if the ball came to you, the ball had gone out of bounds, and you played the ball while not everyone was on the field of play, on the netball court, it was a turnover, right? That's illegal, which to me, can I just vent about netball rules, is the dumbest rule possible. Because it's not my fault that a member of the other team has decided to not be on the court. That's our advantage. We shouldn't be penalized for it. That's their dumb thinking, right? Anyway. I clocked this and I was like, I'm going to use that again later. And so that's what I did. I ran off the court and I got the netball and I threw it back from like a fair way away to this other guy. And I started running back like I wanted to get on the field of play. And as he goes to pass the ball, I stop. Just outside the line, he throws the ball in, whistle, turnover, not everyone was on the field. I get the ball, we take it down the other end, we score, 3 points up, and then we get the ball from the center, we go again, we score, 4 points up with 45 seconds. We won and made it to the grand final. Now, the umpire came up to me after the game and said, I saw what you did. Not okay. If you try that again next week, I'm not going to call it. And really, she knew that it was the rules, but it was the way I did it, right? Like I ran over, like, yeah, I'm going to come in, I'm going to be in. And then just stopped just outside the field of play. So this guy had a turnover. But it was worth it to make it into the grand final. I mean, we lost the grand final, but that's okay. Runners up, right? You know, worth it. But this is the thing. I'm always looking for loopholes when it comes to competitions. I'm always looking for ways I could just bend the rules. And the truth is, I actually think it's not just me. I think all of us do. And maybe not necessarily in sport, but all of us look for little loopholes or ways that we could maybe just bend the rules so things work out a little bit more favorably for us. Now, we had a kid at the 8 a.m. service, and he said that he has this little loophole where his parents will say there's no dessert tonight, but his grandma lives directly across the road, and he has to go to her place to practice his piano, but she always gives him dessert. So there's times where he goes, oh, can I have dessert? And they're like, no. And he's like, okay. And then like half an hour later, he's like, hey, Mum and Dad, can I go practice piano over the road? And they're like, sure, that's fine. He's like, and then I get dessert. And I was like, that is a brilliant loophole. So, you know, like he's pretty lucky. But he's found a loophole, and now he's obviously getting dessert whenever he wants and practicing the piano. So these are loopholes, and we all look for them. And we look for them at school, we look for them in sport, we look for them in our relationships. But the truth is, we can also end up looking for them in our relationship with God. See, some of us might read some things in the Bible and go, it seems like God wants us to do this, but I think that might only mean in this case. And we try and find some loopholes. The other loopholes we have is some of the things that God gives us. Now, the one I want to look at is grace. If you were here last week, we talked about how grace is a gift, a free gift that God gives us. But with any good gift, we can kind of use it how we want. You know, you might have been given a gift that, you know, you got given and it was like, yep, that's great. And you threw it in the bin, right? You could do that if you wanted to. It's your gift now. You can throw it out if that's what you want to do. Might be another gift that you lit on fire, whatever. You can use a gift however you want. And sometimes we think that's how it is with grace. We kind of go, you know what? God has given us his grace and it's a free gift, and he will just forgive me of my sins so I can kind of live my life and do what I want. Now, we are not the first people to think this. See, Paul in Romans chapter 6, verses 1 to 2 says this. He says, well then, should we keep on sinning so that God can show us more and more of his wonderful grace? Of course not. Since we've died to sin, how can we continue to live in it? See, grace is something that sets us free from our sin and the punishment of it, but it's not just for that. It's also meant to give us a helping hand in living our lives free from it. So like the penalty's paid, the debt is paid, but grace is also meant to help us on the journey of living without sin as we try and follow Jesus. And this is often where we can get lost. I want to look at this passage in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 to 3, and that's where we're going to focus on, because that is going to help us understand this idea of how grace helps us live free. It says this, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. So the phrase I want to hone in on is this one that says, let us throw everything off that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Now, I'm going to ask for a volunteer. And Malachi, can I use you? Because you've got a jacket on. So would that make sense? Yeah? Can you come up? All right, give it up for Malachi. He's got his jacket on, ready to go. Now, can you just zip it up? Is that okay? Yeah, great. That's going to make a little bit more sense in a moment. So let's not pretend this is not Malachi anymore, just because I'm about to say that this person has done a lot of terrible things, right? Okay, so it's not Malachi anymore. This is John Smith, okay? John Smith from the forms. If any of you have seen those forms where it's always like John Smith is the demo, this is him. You're just about to meet him, all right? So this is John Smith. Now, here's what you need to understand. John Smith over here, he's done some things. Yeah, that's right. He said some words that you shouldn't say. That's right. Yep. He's told some lies about some people. I know. Can you believe it? He's murdered someone. Oh. Exactly. Oh my gosh. What is going on? And all of that because, is your middle name John? Oh, mine's John. Doesn't count. And he's just, he's been going on and on about doing a whole bunch of stuff. Just a completely inappropriate guy. Now, here's the thing. He's done all this. He's a Christian now, and all his sins are forgiven. So we can be like, oh, John, we're so glad Jesus saved you. Yeah, it's great, it's great, it's great. So good. But here's the thing. These sins can come back into John's life, and they can be a bit of a hindrance. See this like jacket. Now, again, it's metaphor, right? If this jacket is sin, it's something like I can kind of hold on to and kind of control you by, right? Like I'm technically not touching you as a person, am I? No, I'm not. But, you sin and I can just kind of like push you around. Oh, except I let go then. But that's all right. You're free from sin and grace. Let me talk about lying for a second, because I think lying's a really simple one that we can kind of get our head around, right? A lie all of a sudden gets us in a bit of a tricky situation. Let's say that, we forget some homework and we tell our teacher, oh, yeah, my dog ate the homework, right? It's a classic, right? My dog ate the homework. And they're like, okay, well, can I get a note from your parents? And then you've got to go home and you've got to try and convince your parents somehow to write a note that you lost your homework. And so then you might actually have your homework, but you go, well, now I can't do it because my teacher thinks I've lost it. Now I need to lose it. And so you say, hey, Mum and Dad, I lost my homework. I think the dog ate it. And they're like, are you sure? You're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And they're like, do you want us to help you look for it? And you're like, oh, no, I'm pretty sure I saw it in his poop that I put in the bin the other day. I saw the evidence of it. And they're like, oh, okay. And then you've got to convince them that the dog ate the homework as well. So now you've got another lie. But then you kind of also got to go, okay, now I actually have to destroy the evidence. So now I need to remove the homework, right? And so now all of a sudden you're cutting it up, you're ripping it up, you're trying to put it in the bin, you're trying to hide it, you're stuffing it in the poop. Oh, gosh. Yeah, okay, that's fair. But that's a lot of effort to go to. Anyway, all of this to say, all of a sudden, this one lie is beginning to dictate how he's living. All of a sudden, this lie, and these are his own words, have ended up with him putting his homework into the dog's poop to try and cover his tracks, right? And this is the thing. When it says that sin entangles us, this is the idea that Paul's trying to get us to understand. Sin, if we're not careful, will all of a sudden begin to dictate our lives and tell us where to go, how to behave, and what to do, right? That's kind of what happens. Now, can we give it up for Malachi for being a willing volunteer? Thank you. But that's the point that Paul is trying to say. Sin will entangle you and it will limit you and start to dictate and control how you live. So while a Christian is free from the penalty of sin, sin can still be an influencing force, and grace is here to try and set us free from it. See, there's this passage in Titus chapter 2, verses 11 to 12 that says this. Again, it's Paul writing. He says, "For the grace of God has appeared that offers salvation to all people." This is the part most of us know. Grace has set us free from sin and its consequences. That's salvation. But then Paul goes on, God's grace teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly passions and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in this present age. Now, how does God's grace do that? It's because God's grace gives us God's Spirit. See, God's grace, as I said, sets us free from sin. It makes us right with God, and it means God's Holy Spirit can live within us and lead us and guide us. Now, I want to end with this story because it's the clearest example I've ever had in my own life of Titus 2 playing out. Now, I got into golf in like my early 20s, like 23-ish, because I moved to a house with some guys where I lived just down the road from a driving range. So I would go there all the time. And I found a good set of golf clubs at an op shop for like $35, which is an absolute steal. If you've ever tried to buy a single golf club and a good one, they're normally like $100 just for a club, if not more. So I got a whole set for $35. I was like, sweet. And I lived near a golf club, and a few of my other friends were getting into golf. And so every Friday morning, before I would go to work for youth, we would go and play 9 to 18 holes down at the local Buninyong Golf Club. It was great fun, good times. But I, again, am quite competitive, and so I really got into it and started to try and really lift my game. Now, I was starting to get, semi-okay. My scores were coming down. I was getting more consistent. It was great. But there was this other friend of mine. His name was Corey. Corey was also stupidly competitive, and Corey was also a little bit of like an athlete. He was one of those guys who was naturally pretty good at stuff. And Corey had played a bit of golf, and he'd apparently played in some under-16s golf competition and done all right. But anyway, we were mid-20s. So I thought, you know what? Let's give it a crack. Now, we go to the local for Corey, which is the Balan Golf Club. Anyone know Balan? Anyway, it's basically Victoria's version of Dalby, right? So like kind of in the middle of nowhere, not many people there. It's, a bit of a hole, to be honest. But we get to the golf club, and it's not crash hot. Like I said, it's a country town golf club. It's not immaculate. We get to the 12th hole. I'm about 4 strokes up, which is an okay amount, but it's not heaps, because you just have one bad hole and then all of a sudden scores a level again. But this hole we get to is the 12th hole, and it's super elevated. Like if it's 90 meters from me to the hole, it's 40 meters up, right? Like it's a really high elevation. Like it was a steep walk up there. So Corey and I, we get to the hole, we go, we don't even know where the pin is. Let's get up there and have a look. So we go up, have a look, we're like, okay, back corner, great, love it. Corey goes first, bang, big slice, right. Halfway up the hill into the bushes. I go next, boom, smooth as, just straight up, lands up there. I'm like, oh, I'm almost certain is on the green, which is where you want it, right? Perfect. Corey's like, hey, can you help me find my ball? And I said, let me have a look where my ball is first, and then I'll come and help you with yours. I said, great. I get up there, and as I put my head over, I'm like, yes, my ball is on the green. How exciting. And I go over there, and I see where my ball is, and I reckon it's just a little bit further than that. Like it's only like a matter of 6-7 feet, like 2-3 meters from the hole. And I'm like, this looks good. But as I get closer, as I said, it's not well manicured. A good green has nothing on it but just nice, like minimal grass. It's just so smooth. It looks great. But this is, as I said, a country golf club. It's got a weed like directly in front of where my ball is. And like the weed's not huge. Like it's like, kind of like that big. Like it's not huge, like a couple of centimeters. And I think to myself, oh, you know what I should do? Because I was a chance for a birdie, which is a pretty big deal. And I was like, I haven't had many of those. I wouldn't mind a putt for it. And I was like, I'm going to move the ball from one side of the weed to the other. Like it's not far, like I said, a couple of centimeters in the scheme of a couple of meters. But it just makes my putt a lot easier because I don't have to try and get the ball to go over the weed and then still go in. Anyway, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to do that. And as I bend down to pick the ball up, I hear this in my head, he who can be trusted with the little things can be trusted with big things. Now, I don't know if you know that, but it's a Bible verse. And so I stand back up and I'm like, ooh, that was weird. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should just leave it. And I kind of walk away, but then my competitiveness gets going, right? It's like, yeah, but who cares? It's just a few centimeters. Corey won't know. He's still looking for the ball, and there's no guarantee you'll make this putt. So I'm like, oh, yeah, stuff it. I'm just going to move this ball. And as I go down again, I get, he who can be trusted with the little things can be trusted with the big things. I stand straight back up, and I'm like, I cannot touch this ball or I am going to get struck by lightning, right? God is obviously very interested in the fact that I am not moving this ball. So I'm like, all right, I am going to leave it there. And I leave it there, I walk down, find Corey's, and Corey takes another like 3 shots to get up there. Finally, I get the putt. I line up, the ball's just behind the weed. I kind of take it into account, like getting low, like, okay, I think if I hit it a little bit to the left, it'll kind of bounce right and then roll on. All right, great. And I get there and I'm ready. I'm like, all right. Hits the weed and rolls right and misses the hole. Yeah, that's right. There is not always a reward for doing the right thing. That's an important life lesson. But I walked away from that. I got it in. I got a par, which is still all right. And Corey had struggled, so I increased my lead. But what I realized was that was God in that moment teaching me to be a person of integrity, but also reminding me, hey, don't cheat. Because from that point on, once I'd done it once, it would have been really easy for the rest of that round. Corey sliced another one over there. My ball's kind of on the green. He's like, oh, I'm just going to go have a look for mine. I'm like, yeah, no worries. And then I find mine, and then it's just a little, look how far my ball rolled, like an extra 20 meters. All of a sudden, it would be easy for me to cheat again and again and again. And that's this idea of sin could have entangled me in that moment, but God's grace by his Spirit led me into life and righteousness, and sin did not get a hold of me. That is the gift of grace, and that is how grace doesn't just free us from sin, but helps keep us free from sin. So anyway, that's the lesson for today. Grace is a gift for us, not just for the sin that we've done, but to keep us from sin in the future. But let me pray, and then we'll head on out this morning. So Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for your goodness and your faithfulness and your kindness to us. Lord, I pray that you would help us to always remember that your grace is not just something that frees us from the penalty of sin, but it keeps us free from sin going forward, Lord. And I pray that you would lead us and guide us as your people. God, I pray that each young person in this room this morning would be filled afresh with your Spirit, and Lord, that your Spirit would lead them and guide them this week. As they go to say things or do things or think things, Lord, would your Spirit just break through and lead them and guide them, Lord? Would you convict their conscience, Lord, and would you help protect them from walking into sin and letting it begin to entangle their lives, Lord? We pray this in your mighty and powerful name.